Welcome back. For this tutorial, I'm going to make two identical panels and then I'll go ahead and stitch the sides together to make it a t-shirt. Alright, let's begin. I'm starting with a chain number that is a multiple of 6 plus 2, and I've made 122 chain stitches. So a number that can divide 6 plus 2, 120 can divide 6, then I added extra 2. So I'm turning the chain around so I can walk into the middle loop. So into the middle loop like this, and I am going to skip the very first chain, and into the second chain I'll make a single crochet stitch. And after that I'll go through one of the loops of the single crochet stitch and make another single crochet stitch. So I'm going into that eye there and I'm going to make a single crochet stitch on the previous single crochet stitch that I have just made, just like that. And this would serve as our very first double crochet stitch. So you can place a stitch marker to make it easier in the next row. So I'm not making use of a stitch marker because I know where to work in. And after that I'm going to work a double crochet stitch into each chain until I get to the end of the chains. So I'm just going to work double crochet stitches now into all of the chains from here. So this is what I have now. So you're just going to continue working your double crochet stitch into all of the chains until you get to the end of the chains, and I'll come back to tell you what to do next. For the row 2, turn the work and into the very first stitch make a single crochet stitch and place a stitch marker. Well, except you can see what you're doing, but if you're a beginner, I advise to place a stitch marker. So next I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to skip 2 stitches, and into the third stitch I'm going to place a V-stitch, and a V-stitch in this case is a double crochet stitch, chain 2 and a double crochet stitch into the same space. So I'm going to place my double crochet stitch there, chain 2, 1, 2, and into the same stitch, into the same space I'm going to place another double crochet stitch. So that's the first V-stitch, and I'm going to chain 2, skip 2 chains, 2 stitches, sorry, and into the third stitch I'm going to place a single crochet stitch. Then I'm going to chain 2 and skip 2 stitches, and into the third stitch I'm going to place a V-stitch, which is a double crochet stitch, chain 2 and a double crochet stitch again, chain 2 and a double crochet stitch again into the same space, chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and into the third stitch place a single crochet stitch, chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and into the third one place a V-stitch, which is a double crochet stitch, chain 2 and a double crochet stitch again into the same space. So this is what it looks like, and you're going to continue working like this until you get to the end of the row. So chain 2, skip 2 stitches, a single crochet stitch, chain 2, skip 2 stitches, into the third one a V-stitch. So continue like this until you get to the end of the row, and I'll come back to tell you what to do next. So I am at the end of the row now, and I have 3 stitches left, so I'm just going to go into the very last stitch and place a single crochet stitch. So I am ending with a single crochet stitch. So your row 2 should look like this. For the row 3, I'm going to turn the project, and into the very first stitch I'm going to make a single crochet stitch there. Then I'll go through one of the front loops of the single crochet stitch and make another single crochet stitch. And you can place a stitch marker into the top single crochet stitch to make it easier to see in the next row. So for this row, I'm going to be working petals into the V stitches, and I'm going to be working 3 petals into the V stitches. So yarn over, go into the V stitch, drag a loop from behind, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, go into the V stitch again, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. So you'd have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all the 3 loops, then chain 2. Then we're going to go back into the same V stitch. So yarn over, go into the V stitch, drag a loop from behind, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. So you'd have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over again, go into the V stitch, drag a loop from behind, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. So now you'd have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all the 3 loops, then chain 2. So yarn over again, go into the V stitch, drag a loop from behind, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. Now you'd have 2, yarn over, go into the V stitch again, drag a loop from behind, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. So you have 3 now, yarn over and pull through all the 3 loops. So this is the first petal, and we're going to repeat the same thing in the next V stitch. So I'm just going to yarn over and go straight into the next V stitch, insert my hook, grab a loop from behind, yarn over and pull through the first 2, yarn over, go into the V stitch, grab a loop from behind, pull through the first 2. So I have 3 loops now, yarn over and pull through all the 3 loops, then chain 2. Again, yarn over, going to the V stitch, grab a loop from behind, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, going into the V stitch, grab a loop from behind, yarn over and pull through the first 2, then yarn over and pull through all the 3 on the hooks, then chain 2. Yarn over, going to the V stitch, grab a loop from behind, yarn over and pull through the first 2, yarn over again, going to the V stitch, grab a loop from behind, yarn over, pull through 2. Now you have 3, yarn over and pull through all the 3 loops, and this is the second petals, and I'm just going to go right into the next V stitch and repeat the same thing. And so this is what it looks like, and you're just going to continue like this until you get to the end of the row. So I am at the end of the row now, and I'm just going to end by placing a double crochet stitch into the very last stitch. And the very last stitch is the first single crochet stitch that we made at the beginning of the previous row, which is why I advise that you place a stitch marker there so I can see, and I hope you can see from here. So I'm just going to go into the last stitch, which is a single crochet stitch there, and I'm going to place a double crochet stitch into that last stitch, and that's how I am going to end this row. For the next row, I'm going to turn the project like this. Then I'm going to go into the very first stitch and I'll place a single crochet stitch. And then I'll go into one of the front loops of this single crochet stitch like that and place another single crochet stitch So this is going to serve as our double crochet stitch. Then I'm going to chain 1, and for this row I'll be working in between the petals. So I'll be working in the spaces that I have just showed you. So I'm going to go into that space and I'm going to make a double crochet stitch, then chain 1. So I'll be working double crochet stitch, chain 1, double crochet stitch, chain 1. So into the next space I'm going to make a double crochet stitch, chain 1, and into the next space as well. I lost that clip, I don't know why, but I hope you get what I'm trying to do. So I'm just going into the spaces between the petals and I'm just making a double crochet stitch, and then I'll chain 1 before going into the next space, make a double crochet stitch, then chain 1. So into that space I'm going to make a double crochet stitch, chain 1, to the next space, double crochet stitch, chain 1, into the next space, a double crochet stitch, chain 1, in the next space, a double crochet stitch, chain 1. So this is what it looks like, and this is what we're going to be doing until we get to the end of the row. So I'm going to continue like this until I get to the end of the row. So I am at the end of the row now, and I'm going to go right into that last stitch, and I'm going to make my last double crochet stitch there. So this is what it looks like. For the next row I'm just going to turn the project like this, and I'm going to start with making a single crochet stitch into the very first stitch, then go back into one of the loops of the single crochet stitch and make another single crochet stitch, and this serves as our first double crochet stitch, and then I'll go back into that chain 1 there and make a double crochet stitch into it. So you should make your chain 1 a bit loose so that it won't be hard for you to go into. So into that chain 1, as you can see, it's a bit hard for me here because my chain was not loose. So I'm just going to go into that chain 1 and make a double crochet stitch. So I'm going to go into the next stitch now, make a double crochet stitch, and into the chain 1 I'm going to make a double crochet stitch. Hope you can see. Into the next stitch, make a double crochet stitch, into the chain 1, make a double crochet stitch. So I'm just making double crochet stitch into all of the stitches for this row. So this is what I have. So I'm just working double crochet stitches into all of the stitches. Make sure you don't miss any stitch, if not your pattern will not work in the next round. So just continue working your double crochet stitches until you get to the end of the row, and I'll come back to tell you what to do next. So this is what I have now. So I'm just trying to show you that you're supposed to have a chain 1 before the last stitch. So yarn over and into that chain 1, because this can be a bit tricky if you don't use a stitch marker. So into that chain 1 there, just remember you have a chain 1 before the last stitch. So into that chain 1 I'm going to make a double crochet stitch, and then into the last stitch now I'm going to make my last double crochet stitch. And that's it for this row. So for the next rows I'm just going to make 2 more rows of double crochet stitches. So from here it's just straight up, so starting with my single crochet stitch on single crochet stitch as my first double crochet stitch, and I'm just going to work double crochet stitches into all of the previous double crochet stitches that I've made, and then I'll repeat this. So this is row 6 and I'll do this for row 7 as well. So when I'm done with this row 6, I just repeated the double crochet row for the row 7, and then I'm going to repeat this pattern from row 2 to row 7 again until I get to the length that I want. So I repeated this for a total of 24 rows, and it measures 10 inches now, and I'm going to stop here and I'm going to start working the sleeves from here. So for the sleeves, I'm going to count out 30 stitches on both sides, and I'll place a stitch marker into the 30th stitch. So I am marking the 30th stitch on each side. So 30 stitches here, place the stitch marker into the 30th stitch, and here too I place the stitch marker into the 30th stitch. So I'm going to be working into the middle stitches now. For the middle stitches, I have 61 stitches now. So I'm going to reattach my yarn now, making a slip knot, and I'm going to be working into the stitch before the stitch marker. So I'm not working into the stitch that has a stitch marker, I'm just going to go to the one before it now, and I'm going to attach my yarn and make a chain 1. After doing that, I'm going to go back right into that same stitch that my chain 1 is coming from, and then I'm going to make a single crochet stitch. Then I'll go into one of the first loops of the single crochet stitch and make another single crochet stitch, which is going to serve as my first double crochet stitch in that stitch. Then I'm just going to work my double crochet stitches into the following stitches until I get to the stitch before the stitch marker, before the stitch where there is a stitch marker on the other side. So I'm not working into the stitch that has a stitch marker. It's just to count out the body part. So I finished placing my double crochet stitches now, and I have 61 stitches here. So from here now, I'm just going to repeat the pattern. So I'm repeating row 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and 7. I'm repeating the pattern 2 times to get my sleeve length. You can do this for as long as how you want your sleeve to be. Your sleeve can be shorter than mine, or it can be bigger than mine. I just wanted my top to look big. That's why I made the sleeve this long. I actually think that my own sleeve is too long actually, so you can make yours shorter. It might look better that way. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to attach the both panels together. So I'm going to just place the both panels this way, and I'm going to attach this side with a needle. So I'm just going to grab the both panels like this. So I'm making sure to match the stitches together. Then I'm just going to go in with my needle, and I'm going to attach the yarn, then tie to secure. And then I'm just going to match the stitches and sew the sides together. So I'm going to sew the sides together until I get to the point where I want my neckline to start from. So I'm just going to continue like this. Just keep sewing. So as you can see, I've done the other part to the back part, and I'm just doing this part here now. I'll just keep sewing until I get to the same part, like the same point that I stopped for the other part, and this is what I have now. So I am done sewing this now. for this side, I'm just going to match the stitches together again, then make my slip knot. Then I'm just going to attach this to the very first stitches on the both panels. So the both panels, I'm just going to insert my hook like that, then attach my yarn. And after attaching my yarn, I'll chain one to go back into that space that the chain one is coming from, and I'm going to make a single crochet stitch. So I'm going to match the stitches on the both panels now. Into the next stitches, I'm going to make another single crochet stitch. So into the next one, a single crochet stitch, and I'm just going to continue placing single crochet stitches into the both panels. So this is how I'm going to attach this side together. So make sure you're grabbing the both panels and you're going into the stitches on the both panels so that you can attach this properly. So just continue working your single crochet stitch until you get to the end here where the sleeve stops. So I finished working my single crochet stitches, and this is how I attached. So this is this other part, and I have done this other part as well to save time, and this is what it looks like. So yours should look like this as well. And I'm done, so the top is ready, and I hope you're able to follow this tutorial and you like it. Leave a comment for me and I'll make sure to reply you. Bye.